I saw you. All right, we're live, gentlemen, and we have a great show today. It is Wednesday, February 5th, and this it's just, it seems like it was yesterday that we were finishing 2024, and it's already February, and taxes are coming, and pretty soon it'll be summer. It's like incredible. Um, So I have a quick joke for you guys. So a guy goes to a doctor and the doctor checks him out. He says, Mr. Johnson, I don't have good news. You are terminal. And so he goes, so how long do I have? And he goes, 2 months. And so the Mr. Johnson says, so can you make the 2 months to be July and August? Anyway, that's a terrible joke. But we're live, and before we get going here, we're gonna have our own John Sibley Butler, who's wearing a dapper suit and a nice tie today, to give us some music.
I've been down this road before. I remember every tree, every single blade of grass has a special meaning for me. And I remember everything in every hotel room and every song I ever sing on a guitar out of tune. And I remember everything, things I can't forget. Where you turn and smile on me the first night that we met. And I remember every night your ocean eyes of blue. How I miss you in the morning light, like the roses, Mr. Dew.
All right.
Might
Thank
be
you, Johnny.
Jim Croce.
Yeah, I do a lot of crotchets. Actually, with John Prime. That's a John Prime too, but Jim did it.
Nice.
So Johnny, the things are moving pretty fast. I've been talking to Europe lately, and the Europeans are basically witnessing that there's an incredible amount of work going on, innovation going on, and the race against China is picking up speed and steam, and the whole AI thing and deep seek and all that, and the auto industry and energy consumption and the data centers. And I mean, it's just an incredible amount of focus on what's next. And obviously, we have a new administration and all kinds of changes going on, perhaps too disruptive at times, short term, but hopefully that will all settle down. But what say you?
Well, I say that we have a global economy now. What I mean by that is that, as I've said before, capital is now free to roam. That is, capital is roaming all over the world, and where capital roam, then you have a lot of innovation. And remember that capital or capitalism can develop under all kinds of structures. It can develop under democracy, it can develop under socialism, it can develop under imperialism, it can develop all kinds of ways. So what China did was to take socialism with I mean, it took communism with the Chinese flavor, as they would like to say. And then if you look at what's happening around the globe, it is the movement of capital. So as long as capital is free to roam, then capital will seek in our kind of system where it works best. And what has happened over the years is that capital first started in the Northeast and then it moved to the central states in America looking for labor because capital will seek the least amount of a cost for labor. And of course, then it went overseas. Well, when that happened, of course, we gave away our future to our kids. So for the most part, the next generation, especially the kids that's doing the gig stuff, they do not have the same thing as people who have the stock market now. Because Andreas, right now, if you're in the stock market, you're booming, but 50% of the people in America are interesting. So most of the
Mm-hmm.
people my age in America do not have $1,000 in the bank. If they have a crisis, then it's different. And right now, if it's going to be all the stock market where the technocrats, right, create all the great companies, and then we invest in that because of low interest rates. So I can tell you this, if low interest rates went down, became low, maybe I just go borrow $800,000, but not invest in the factory that create jobs, but invest in the stock market, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
really creates the situation that we're in. So all over the globe, people are trying to figure this new stuff out, and within all of it comes with China, which basically said, okay, we don't need you anymore, theoretically. We're now building our own cars. We are now building our own airplanes, and they are. And by the way, we're creating the Brexit kind of situation where we're getting with the companies I mean, with the countries of the South, with Brazil and Russia
Mm-hmm.
and India and etc., and creating a whole nother way of thinking about the world. Now, when I say thinking about the world, if a country is in trouble, perhaps they won't come to America anymore for financial resources because maybe they'll go to China. But to make it all clear, we're in a global capitalization where the capital flows. And I think what this president is doing, he has turned to the nationalist model. He's a populist. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it all started when I was in President Bush's organization, when they bail out Bear Stearns and bail out big business. And that's when the Teapot was formed. And they said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
we need to stop spending so much. And then, of course, they looked for somebody who was not a Republican, who was not a Democrat, but who was a populist. And I think the president is a populist with some nationalism that's thrown in. That is, American
Mm-hmm.
first is it's the opposite of the global kind of
Mm-hmm.
society. And I think that's going to be very interesting. Now, as you said, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. But as a scholar, that is, I study not economics, but economic thought, which goes all the way back to Ibn Khaldun, in the 15th, 14th century, the great scholar who talked about economics. So if you look at economic thought, the question is, can a country stop having a global kind of tradition and move to a populist, nationalistic kind of tradition? To put it in ways in everyday life, can America create its own kinds of products? As we said
Mm-hmm.
in our conversation, then America makes big things, but nothing that we buy as a product in a grocery store is made in America. And so we have the jockeying, if you will, of everything. And then I think this president is about institutions. He's the institutional person. The institution would be the family. The institution would be the church. The institution would be the leagues that you belong to. But more importantly, I think the big question looming now is not traditional Republicans versus Democrats. It's how popularism and nationalism through the Teapot Party, right, has gotten a say in the higher forms of government. I think the president is a transition president. He like transactions. I think the president is a businessman. I think the president is based on not necessarily governmental kind of stuff, even helping out people. Is based on is the deal good for America, and that is a
Mm-hmm.
nationalist point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So my
Mm-hmm.
scholars in political science are saying, I think Andrew Jackson had this kind of a point of view. Certainly Abraham Lincoln had the point of view about not having two countries. But more importantly, what will happen to the future generations who right now, Andreas, if you're in the stock market, you're booming. Your life is good. Andreas, what we left to future generation was the gig economy.
Mm-hmm.
With no kind of a retirement, with no kind of way of looking forward to a great future in America. So I think this kind of and we don't know if it will work or not
Mm-hmm.
in the long term, but he's certainly having a say. And I think the question is this: if I'm a scholar, the question is this: can the policies of President Trump actually provide opportunities for future generations who are not in what I call the financial sector, who
Mm-hmm.
are not in the technology sector, who will not have any retirement in the future, who cannot go get a job by finishing high school, not buy a nice house in Cleveland, Ohio, and go see the Cleveland Indians play and the Browns play. So I think we're at a point, an inflection in society as to how the president wants to do that. Will he be successful? We don't know. But add to all of that, in steps China, who says, hey, we are now the big dogs on, you know, in the global economy.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have our own kind of currency. And by the way, if you put a tariffs or a tax on my deals, I'm coming back and put one on your deals. So from a business point of view, do we have the strength to negotiate with China? And President Trump says the following: what do we need? We make our own cars. We have our own petroleum. We produce more petroleum than anybody in the world. We do our own infrastructure. And I think that's a gamma, and we have to see how that gamma pays off.
John,
Sure.
I'm
So,
I'm deeply concerned by that statement because it is completely fact free, right? Like we don't make any of our stuff here. We don't. In fact, everything we do make here is made out of parts, components, and
yeah,
inputs that come from elsewhere.
yeah, that's what I mean. But what I'm saying, and they're going to drop the stuff on here. So I think what we have to do is ask one question. As a scholar, I ask this question, not as somebody who's trying to eat bread and meat. In the populist tradition and in the nationalist traditions, right? You go back to Andrew Jackson in Germany after World War I, with Hitler went into a
Mm-hmm.
nationalist stance, right? Can such a model produce a future for Americans? And can we bring back some kind of manufacturing to America where there are great jobs and great retirements for Americans? And of course, as the dollars flow, then people can go from country to country. You know, I spent 2 summers in China. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to me. So that's how I read it. I think that's where we are. We're in a new experiment,
Yep.
and it's being very, very disruptive.
Llewellyn, what say you? And let's keep it brief.
President processes. I think he had a very good understanding of international relations. I think that we're into a very dangerous time in world affairs and a dangerous time in the US because his actions so far push up interest rates, which will cause all kinds of problems here, including the dollar getting harder, making it more difficult for us to trade. I don't think that we're going to become a manufacturing hub, particularly at a time when manufacturing, because of artificial intelligence, is likely to be changed out of all recognition. I was on a call this morning with our friend Assad Mansour at the EPRI, and he was laying out a world so changed by artificial intelligence that much of it would not be recognizable, including the electric utilities. And to have this old idea that circa 1949 kind of America can be recreated is nonsense. We need an America of services, of ideas, of innovation, not to worry about things that actually don't terribly matter, like trade deficits. Trade deficits bother politicians, but they don't have an impact on the economy in the way at one time they appeared to. They bothered Lyndon Johnson. I remember him getting enormously upset and restricting the amount of money you could take on vacation if you went out of this country. I was doing some freelancing at the time for a travel magazine, and I was deputy travel editor of a newspaper, among other things. And it was all so much nonsense. We didn't come unstuck because we bought goods abroad. We come unstuck when we cease to trade. We voluntarily went abroad. We sent our manufacturing. American companies did it. It wasn't done by the Chinese. They didn't suck it out of us. We sent it. We sent it because it was economically advantageous, and we benefited from it, in that we had an enormous amount, and we still do, of consumer goods that are cheaper than they would cost if they were made here. This leaves you with some huge vulnerabilities. If you should be in a war, we do not, for example, make a simple telephone here. We do not do a lot of things here. We love avocados, but 90% of them are grown in Mexico. So if you want guacamole, don't put big tariffs on Mexican farm product. There are a lot of things that are changing, and some things that remain constant. One of the things that remains constant is the wrong ideas. They go on, and they recur, and they come back, and we're seeing a whole revisitation of ideas from the past right at the moment, that you can kick all your friends in the butt and have them turn around and remain your friends. Odd thing will happen. They will look for other friends. They won't see you as their friend anymore. We have taken up, basically for no purpose, for no gain, for no merit, our two contiguous allies, Mexico and Canada. It is ridiculous to annoy your neighbors. You've got to live with them. They're not going away. And then this is absolutely comic book, to think that you won a victory when one of your neighbors sends troops to the border. Generally, countries don't want troops sent to their borders. That's not a good thing. So we're in a very bizarre situation where old ideas, half-formed ideas, and myths are dominating. For example, USAID. Now, I've seen USAID over the years. I've seen it in Botswana, I've seen it in Malawi, I've seen it in Pakistan, I've seen it in Bolivia at work. It's like any other operation. It's messy, it's not precise, it's hard to measure, but it is a huge benefit to the United States. People remember kindness. In your own life, you remember kindness much longer than you remember somebody who did a smart thing with money. And it's no different between nations. The Greeks are dedicated to the Brits because Byron went and fought in their war. The poet, Canada is indebted to Boston for helping after the munitions explosion during the First World War. Kindness is remembered. Kindness is an international tool. It's called soft diplomacy, which is a term I don't terribly like, but it's effective. And we suddenly kicked it out like that's no good. And there is a paranoia in this administration that has no basis, and that is a paranoid belief that every country on earth is cheating the US, treating it unfairly. We don't have a lot of commercial arrangements with other countries. We have commercial arrangements between American companies and companies overseas. They're not government-to-government relations, and we drive hard business people drive hard bargains. So the idea that we're being cheated, that we're being treated unfairly, that we are getting the sand kicked in our eyes by all the weaklings around the world is just nonsense. And we're in a time when the nonsense is coming out of Washington in a fire hose gusher.
All right. How do I get you guys back on track? So
I was right on track, very perspicacious, I thought.
Yeah, but I want to talk about innovation. And
Innovation, but you must also have a market for your innovation. And if you've turned off your markets, you don't do as well.
Well, I don't disagree with that holistically, but we have a great guest, and I want to bring him on. So Alex Blum is a friend and the founder and CEO of Applied Bioplastics. And hopefully we'll get into his journey, which is, I think, fabulous. So I Apply Bioplastic supplies economically sustainable plant-based plastic alternatives. Their product variety delivers countless use cases, transforming plastic as we know it. Their products reduce petroleum dependency, pollution, and habitat destruction. And through their supply chains, they support eco-friendly agriculture in developing countries. Alex, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me with such distinguished guests. I feel a bit out of place.
Not at all, Alex. I would like for you to share a little bit of your journey of where you are at, because you are really trying to change the rules of the game as it relates to plastics. And the United States, being the largest market, is probably not your first target to prove everything, but hopefully you're coming soon to market. So tell us where you're at.
Certainly. Really appreciate that. And one of the thoughts that Llewellyn shared around, we shipped our businesses overseas on purpose. Yeah, we did. And it created tons of opportunity across the globe. And it's important that we created that opportunity. And it's on our young people for not keeping up, right? It's on our education systems for not keeping up. But further, it's on the companies that shipped the jobs overseas, right? I mean, these are important things to do, and we have done the same at Applied Bioplastics. And I'll share very quickly, the reasoning for that, and it's a math equation. So the number one polymers university on earth is UMass Lowell. The graduates from there generally want $120,000 USD, coming out of school because they are PhDs from the best polymer university on earth. However, there's another school. It's called MIT Pune. It's in Pune, in India. And the graduates from that school demand between 30 and 40,000 USD per year because they're PhDs and they're highly trained scientists from the second best polymer university on earth. So if I were to start a chemicals company in the United States, which I did, and hire in the United States, which I have to some extent, I would have gone out of business 4 years ago, because things like what we are doing take a long time to develop. When you're trying to do deep tech, when you're trying to do hard stuff that many, many other teams have tried before and failed, especially better funded teams than yourself, why would you go blow all your money on staff? Right? Why would you go blow your investors' money on staff? Human beings only work so fast, right? Particularly when it comes to science. Science takes time, particularly when you're talking about material science, where the material needs to behave a certain way over a long period of time. You must be able to test and replicate that over and over and over. Now, luckily, we've invented things called, not we, Applied Bioplastics, but humanity has invented something called an advanced aging chamber, where you can put samples of materials and it will bombard it with radiation and heat and cold and lots of other things to simulate the passage of time. But those tests still take months, right? So again, months on that math equation for a single PhD from UMass Lowell would have cost me at minimum $60,000. And that's without even talking about lab equipment, supplies, rent, power, insurance, all that other stuff. Or I could go to MIT Pune and get a graduate of the exact same quality, pay them in a way that is fair and competitive to them, right? And have three of them. Now I have triple the manpower for the same amount of money over the same period of time. That is how Applied Bioplastics has gone from one solution, which was a thermoset composite panel similar to fiberglass, to over 50 products in 5 years that serve a wide range of businesses and needs within the plastic industry. So let's back up and I will give my bona fides one last time. I feel like folks that attend Andres's event have heard me tell this story way too many times. And if you're nauseated, feel free to mute me. But this is my story. I came to Austin in 2008 to attend the University of Texas at Austin. I dropped out in 2009 because I had no idea why I was going into all this debt just to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Now, brilliant move for the economist here. I assume Dr. Butler dropping out during a financial recession at the age of 19 with barely any work experience. I get a thumbs up from you for that one, right? That's a
As
great.
I told Michael Dale, you should have stayed in school and taken my class.
Right. Exactly. So I dropped out, and my class was selling windshield repairs on the side of the road. I had a very simple pitch. If you give me your insurance card, I'll call your insurance. I'll report the damage to your window. It'll cost you nothing, and I can get it fixed in 5 minutes. But if you wait and the windshield cracks out, you're personally responsible for replacing that.
I think I hired you one time. I
Say-
think that I hired you
Did you? What business do you think?
on the windshield.
Oh, really? Oh, that might have been me. Anyhow, I go out and I'm doing this stuff. I was homeless for about 3 months during this period. I slept under I-35 here in Austin, and shout out to Mobile Loaves and Fishes for being a wonderful charity that fed me a few times. Now, I was able to work my way into a place where I had, and by the way, this windshield repair business, they paid us $0 an hour, zero in salary. You got $20 if you managed to convince somebody to pull out their insurance card and do the whole transaction. And so you had to do that 5 times a day to be able to eat or pay rent. So that was my life in 2009. I was able to work my way through that. It turns out I was very good at that, and got people to pull out their insurance cards and realized, I'm kind of good at this sales stuff. Maybe that's what I should do for a living. So I started, looking into other sales. I sold cars, I sold hotel rooms, I sold any number of things, and realized, there's a lot of money to be made in sales, but nobody's going to give it to me if I don't have a college degree. So I had been maintaining my student status at Austin Community College, another shout out, a wonderful institution that gets young people educated when they don't have any money to pay for it and no family help, and was eventually able to rematriculate to the University of Texas at Austin, where I graduated with a degree in rhetoric, and then immediately ran for office as a city councilman here in Austin. I lost. But the reason I ran was to fix a dangerous intersection in North Austin. There was no light there, and people were getting into accidents 3 times a week. Long story short, I had to go all the way to the Texas State Legislature. We expanded the borders of Austin by 250 yards. And as of today, there is a stoplight at that intersection. It's just north of Parmer and Lamar. But that moment, and the reason I bring that part of my story up is that moment convinced me of the value of helping others and the value of being involved in your community. I think I grew up at a time when we were transitioning our social areas from in person to the internet. I'm one of I was born in 1990, right? So the internet already existed when I was born, but it wasn't really a consumer product yet. But by the time I was a teenager, it was. And so many of my friends started linking up online rather than going out together or doing something, in the street together, or whatever. And I realized that this is the wrong way for society. And that we do need to connect, and that we do need to help each other. So here I am doing my sales jobs, right? I ended up, because of my college degree, getting a job at a company that's headquartered right downtown, born here in Austin, WP Engine, wonderful web host over there. Left there, went to Oracle, terrible experience. Will never work for that person again. And by that, I mean the CEO of Oracle, their business practices are unhinged. But anyways, moving on from that thought. The next place I ended up was Thousand Eyes, which is still on 7th Street, downtown Austin. They were recently purchased by Cisco Networks, which was an amazing deal. $2.5 billion after being in business as a startup for less than 10 years. So fantastic transaction, obviously funded me a little bit. But the story really starts in 2017. So a full decade after we started the story. I'm going to try to go fast here, guys. But The shortest version of this is that I closed a very, very large deal. This paid me $500,000 commission check, and at 27, with no significant debt and no significant assets, I decided to donate all $500,000 to charity. Now, why? It has to do with the commission structure of my business. Basically, any salesman will hit his quota and then he will get accelerators. He'll get paid more per deal after he's done so. I just happened to close this very large deal 2 weeks into the fiscal year and close my entire annual quota in doing so. So I got to be in accelerators for a full, 11 and a half months. And I said to myself, I need motivation to continue working really hard. So instead of sitting on my laurels here, I'm going to give the money away. In concert with that, both of my parents are very, very charitable people. My father's one of the few neuroimmunologists in the world. My mother started the North America's first children's hospice, where children are able to go die in dignity when they have, terminal illnesses. So they've also given a lot of their time to Caribbean nations, other things like that. And I said, charity is the right thing to do. So I started to look for ways to spend the money. And that took me a friend of mine that I met at University of Texas, who said, something really terrible is happening in my home country of Bangladesh. Perhaps we could go do something about it together with your money. And I agreed. And we flew to Bangladesh. And I ended up being one of the first Americans with boots on the ground in the Rohingya genocide. Which was occurring in Myanmar, but it was really affecting Bangladesh because 2 million people had crossed the border from the Rakhine into Chittagong, which is that part of Bangladesh. So I'm sitting there filming refugees coming across the border with my cell phone and thinking to myself, I don't think I've ever felt more useless in my life. And I decided, instead of doing what I was doing, to film a documentary while I was there. So I hired a local film crew. We shot a documentary, and it's statute of limitations is up, so I can say this on a recorded line, but we illegally launched drones into Burmese airspace and captured footage of their military units burning down villages, just like they said that they weren't doing. We submitted that evidence to the United States Senate, to the UN. It was used in both cases. In fact, Senator John McCain wrote the Burma Human Rights and Freedom Act as a result, I believe, of seeing this footage. As well, the footage was used in the hearing for crimes against humanity against the nation of Burma. That film also went on to do quite well. If anybody cares to watch it, it is called Blossoms from Ash. It's available on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. My self-promotion done. I will move on. While I was in Bangladesh, I was introduced to Dr. Khan, Dr. Mubarak Ahmed Khan. Feel free to look him up. He's quite famous in South Asia. He has invented a number of things over the course of his life. Used to be a nuclear engineer, set up Bangladesh's first nuclear reactor. When I met him, he had invented several plant-based plastic technologies, some of them as long as a decade and a half ago. And I was really interested by these, so I asked to visit his laboratory. He showed them to me and showed me the economic benefits and the whole business case that he had for these. And I said, well, Dr. Khan, where is this deployed? Where did you put, this into the world? And he said, well, nowhere. And I said, well, what do you mean, Dr. Khan? He puts his nose in the air and says, Alex, I am a scientist, not a salesman. And I said, well, funny thing, Dr. Khan, I'm a salesman, not a scientist. Perhaps if we put two things together, we could make something happen here. And we did. We talked about it for a while. We ended up acquiring his IP, and that is when I started Applied Bioplastics. I don't know if sharing is enabled on here, Andres. I do have some pictures that I can show, if that is.
If you see a green arrow, go ahead.
Excellent. Very good. Well, in that case, I will pull up, instead of a deck, I'm going to actually just pull up my photos folder for what we've accomplished at Applied Bioplastics.
And while you're doing that, if you had taken my course on technology transfer, I could have saved you all of your stuff you had in your interesting world.
Right.
Because that's my specialty. Why are you pulling that up? Yeah, we all know that science creates wealth, and we also know there's a lot of science sitting on the shelf that can be commercialized.
It's absolutely true, and it's one of the most.
So I'm gonna look at the product and then screw your wig on tight because I got some questions to answer you.
Sounds good. I love questions. So we're going to start here with the first step, and I'm going to describe the production process for our first product first. So essentially what this is it's using agricultural waste cloth, which you should be able to see here on the blue table, and spraying our proprietary chemicals on that cloth. The next step is to rub thermoset resin into the cloth evenly, work out all of the air bubbles between two pieces of Mylar, put it in a mold, pose like Superman, very important step, and cut off the edges, and you have a wall that's made out of agricultural waste that costs about $7 to $8, depending on the inputs, and that has an incredibly high R value, which is a measure of insulation. It's also found to be extremely tough. Our homes, oh, I'm spoiling things. Our homes that are made out of these have survived multiple major storms, and they're actually even in early testing as a ballistic shield against explosive drones for fixed positions in combat. That's how strong these multi-layer composites are. But COVID stopped everything. And we started this company in 2019. We incorporated in June 2019. 6 months later, as we just finished our first, experimental deployments, everybody got shut down with COVID. So we spent some time in the laboratory and said, this is really cool, but it's got to be applicable to other things, right? Like building materials, great, locally based, locally manufactured by hand building material will create a lot of jobs and a lot of dignified housing. But what if we could take this further and perhaps bring it to the world of industry? So we spent a great deal of our time during COVID working on that. And I'm proud to say, by the way, this first product is called Better Board, or Biothermoset Resin Board. The next that I'm going to show you is called BioFi. This is, by the way, my very good looking co-founder. But moving on. What you see in front of you right now is BioFi. This is a pelletized injection moldable, plastic that has all the same properties as polypropylene or polyethylene. It's tunable. It can be tuned to do a number of different jobs. As I mentioned earlier, we have over 40 products right now using this. And it's, I think the most important thing here is that it is cheaper than oil-based plastic. And that is the key piece, because I'm not a chemist, as Dr. Khan so tactfully pointed out. I don't really know what we can do with this sort of material. So I started to call failed bioplastics founders, and there are dozens of them. And this is a question for John here, or not really a question, but something that I feel like he'll appreciate, is that bioplastics have been around for 30 years, but have never really gained traction in the market. And I have
40 years, 45.
Yeah. So I have, it's been a half decade since I started this company. I'm still using the same talk track from the beginning. But anyways, so the reason I'm mentioning this is we devised 3 rules after talking to a larger data set of bioplastics makers, and they are these. Number 1, do not enter a commodities market with a product that's more expensive than the incumbent. Duh, huge economic insight right there. John, would I have learned that in your class, or is that too obvious?
Yeah, because what you're talking here is, Alex, is switching costs.
Exactly.
And I think your major, if I might just add in terms of the business model, we have lots of products that's natural. We have lots of building projects that's natural. And what you run into is just the switching costs. That is the switching costs for production, the switching costs for switching suppliers. And, and I can give you $1 billion advice here, and I will, because, Andreas, right?
Yeah.
Is that I think that you should do I don't know what I would call it. I would not call it a combination. I don't want to use the business terms. But most people don't know what houses are made of. They just know that they work.
Right.
So instead of advertising as applied bioplastics, I would go to the builders who are doing it and let them put that into their estimations and just sell it as another product.
Absolutely.
Who cares if it's a bioplastic? Who cares, right? What you want
That's
to
actually
know.
exactly how we've approached the market, John,
Yeah.
and I'm really glad that
Okay, well, you can send me my advice here later. Send me 10 million later. But my point is, seriously, is that if you look at tech transfer and you look at science and technology, and you look at what we're doing on the grid now, the biggest cost is switching costs.
Indeed.
Everybody in the world understands, everybody world understands that it's better build shingles with different kinds of material, right? But the
Indeed.
switching costs are so great. So I think you're caught
Mhm.
between a great product and switching costs. So get with people who are doing this already. They don't have to, they can say, oh, by the way, it's bioplastic. Nobody would know what it means. They just
Totally.
know that it
Mm.
lasts.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're actually planning a rebrand to Applied Bio, but for today we'll call ourselves Applied Bioplastics. So
And just rebrand because of talking to me.
$10 million. I got you, Doc. I
So,
got
so
you, Doc.
seriously, I think that is, I mean, it is a traditional kind of problem, and you know, a lot of great products, automobiles. I mean, look, come on, you know, an electric car has been around since the late 1800s.
Right.
Well,
Right.
what are the switching costs? All right,
Exactly.
and so if
So
you could,
back to the rules here. So
yeah,
the rule number one is do not enter a commodities market with something more expensive than the incumbent. Number two is if you're a chemist who's trying to start a bioplastics company or any sort of company really, and you've never worked in a factory, you really, really should not start one. You shouldn't. You need to figure out how to make this in the world's existing equipment, whatever it is that you're making, use the incumbent equipment. And that takes us to our third one, which is never ever try to sell somebody a new machine. Especially in the plastic industry has been using the same machines for half a century. Many of the people who compound plastic today, who make plastic today, are mom and pop businesses where literally the business has been passed down from grandfather to son. They know how to use the machines that they have. They do not need to know or have to know or want to know about your brand new newfangled contraption that makes plastic out of unicorn farts, right? It's just not important to them. So what we've done with this, number one, with Betterboard, as you can see here, we have created durable housing for areas that don't really use durable housing or haven't had access to durable housing or whose housing is frequently destroyed by disasters like coastal communities. We've made it into a flat pack product that can not only be used for construction, but also disaster relief. In fact, this right here is an entire village in the back of a small pickup truck. This
Mhm.
is one of our most recent installations, which is on the coast of Bangladesh. There's a quick video for you, and also one of our beneficiary families that is there as well. Um, I don't know how streaming a video is going to work while streaming a video, but this is what this looks like, right? So those are two homes. We actually deployed them last week. They are specifically built to be storm resilient, and you'll see in just moments that they are placed on one of the lowest elevation places on Earth in the path of some of the world's most violent storms. We are
Mm.
confident that our houses will survive that. Everybody else has to rebuild their homes every 6 months. We believe our beneficiaries will not have to rebuild their homes. Here's one more great picture of that. So that is what Applied Bioplastics has done over the last half decade. I was just telling Andres before we started the recording here that we have hit a major milestone at Applied Bioplastics just in the last 30 days. We doubled our annual revenue from 2024 in January of 2025. So this is starting to be taken seriously. There's a number of companies that have taken this on. We're in paid trials with around 30 companies right now. And all of them are seeing savings. And this is, I think what Andres was saying when he says we're changing the rules, I think actually the rules are the same. What's is the product. The rule is you cannot make people change. They'll only change if they want to. So you have to
Mhm.
make them want to. How do you make them want to? Generally, in capitalism, save or make them money. Those are your two options. You get to save them money or you can make them money, but there's not much else, right? So that's what a business case is all about. And so we followed the rules, unlike every other bioplastics company out there that said, well, you're bad for not adopting my plastics. You're bad, like morally, because you didn't take this opportunity to reduce your carbon and microplastics footprint. We said, hey, as a side benefit, you're going to improve your carbon and microplastics footprint. But the real reason we're here today in front of you is I can save you 8% on your plastic costs. Given that your previous margin was 8%, I'm going to double your profits. How does that?
Mhm.
And that
Sure.
guys, is why we're succeeding in India, by the way, the most price sensitive plastic market on earth. We've succeeded with our unit economics there, and we're now looking to move our company to the United States, where we are registered to build logistics equipment at first. It's a high volume, high necessity product that that lots and lots of companies want to improve on.
Awesome. Awesome. Llewellyn, chime in.
I think it's totally fascinating. I think you have an advantage which you can or cannot apply, and that is a green premium, so that you can actually sell your product for more than the competitor, because in the electric industry, we have found out there is a green premium. I ran a conference on value added in electric utilities, and the only thing they came up with that really worked was green electricity. People will pay more for it. But that's beside the point. What about your feedstock? Is the feedstock universal? Will it be the same in the US as it is in Bangladesh, or is it dependent on local farming conditions?
So it is not dependent on local farming conditions, primarily because our composites are made fiber agnostically. So essentially, we are able to use just about any fiber on Earth. What's interesting to us about fibers is the cellulosic sheath around the molecule there. So the cellulose is core to what we do. And I'll explain how, which is cellulose is a self-bonding molecule. It creates a small atomic or weak atomic bond with itself. This is why grass is springy and trees stand up tall, right? And so we said, what if we packed plastic with cellulose molecules tight enough that they can form a bond with each other? In fact, millions of bonds in any given object with each other, forming this reinforcing matrix. So I'm going into the chemistry for this one reason. It doesn't really matter where we get the cellulose, except on price and energy usage to prepare it. So let me give an example of things that we do not use. Number one, seaweed. It costs far too much energy and dollars to dry seaweed to the extent that we need it to be dried to use it in our process. Two, marijuana. I don't even need to tell you. There's some obvious reasons why we don't use that. Three would be sugar cane. Sugar cane has too much sucrose alongside the cellulose, and sucrose is very temperature sensitive. Most of the machines that our plastics are made and used in run at between 300 and 400 degrees Celsius. Thus, sugar would burn very badly and maybe even start a fire in the machine. So we don't use sugar cane. And then lastly, and this is not a technical problem, this is an industry problem, we do not use hemp. And the reason we do not use hemp is because the hemp producers today are out of their minds on price. We receive fiber shipped for 5 to 7 cents a pound from nearly every other source. However, the fiber producers, the hemp fiber producers, want 70 cents per pound. They claim it is a value-added product, and I strongly disagree.
What is your ideal source of cellulose? Is it corn stalks? Is it grass?
Corn stalks is a close one. So anything that is strong and fibrous, if you could make a rope from it, then it is ideal for us. But we can do it with like rice hull, corn stove, or other things like that.
And presumably anything in that category. What is excuse me, I beg your pardon. What are your future uses? Houses are good, but beyond housing, how about small applications? One of the things that people feel very strongly about is the pollution of the oceans with small plastic. And they would love to have a biodegradable plastic to replace all the silly little things and packaging, etc., that today are plastic.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite and least favorite questions. Let's talk about packaging real quick, because it's divided into durable packaging and non-durable packaging. Applied Bioplastics today does make durable packaging. For instance, behind me is a black shipping pallet, right? So this is an example of the types of products we make here in the United States. This is durable packaging. It's required to move stuff everywhere, and it's high volume in its use of plastic. So that's why we've targeted that market. However, when we talk about things like a plastic bottle, Applied Bioplastics will likely never make a plastic bottle, nor allow a licensee or buyer to make a plastic bottle using our current technology today. And the reason for that is that at least half of that material is still petroleum based and non-biodegradable. See, our cellulosic fillers are biodegradable, but the overall composite is not biodegradable. So, as a stretch goal for our company, because we've gone through a lot of products already here, and I don't want to turn off any investors by, acting like we do not have a focus, but we do have a focus, right? It's durable plastic. One day, hopefully, if we're well funded, we will be able to do the same thing that we've done to oil-based plastics to bio-based plastics. One of my biggest concerns is PET, PHA, PLA. All of these things are represented as healthier plastics, and it's true that they create substantially less trash. However, when not properly disposed of, they emit methane, which is 18 times more damaging to our environment than carbon would be. So what's even the point of making those things? My thought is that if we adulterate those PHAs, PLAs, and PETs with our fibers, it's possible that their cost will come down substantially, widening the use cases that you see them in, and also substantially reduce the other toxic chemicals that they're putting in besides oil. However, talking about small items, a comb. And I know that this is a very, very standard item. The reason I'm showing you this is that the geometry on a comb is very difficult to do with most bioplastics. They can't do this kind of thing. And if they do this kind of thing, they're not going to be strong. But observe.
Yep.
Just like polypropylene, that is what we do. We've also, coffee cups. There were a number of images that I flashed past that on my little slideshow of other products that have been made using our technologies. All the small items that you're sick of seeing be made out of plastic can be made by our stuff. Not films, not bottles, and not single use, not today.
Okay.
What polymer binds your fibers?
Usually polypropylene or polyethylene.
Thank you.
Very
I thought that was
interesting.
fascinating.
Johnny?
Let's talk on the business side, and let me defend my scientists. We want to win the Nobel Prize. We're not interested in making money.
Of course, and that's absolutely right. And
So, as a scientist, as a statistician myself, I do a lot of stuff. But let's talk about the product, and I think how you are managing now, and what 512 CMG could do to make you manage more, right? So I bought a car. I really don't know I really don't care what's in it.
of course,
I don't want to watch the sausage being made. I just want to make sure that it's good.
of course.
Some people have a great deal of concern, like, it was biodegradable and et cetera, but a lot of people do not, quite frankly.
Exactly. They want it cheaper.
They want it cheaper, but they
And
want
that's
it
what we offer. Yeah.
So let me just talk something about what 512 is doing in your industry, and what you might be able to help. And it's a passion of mine. I'm from Southern Louisiana, where we have storms all the time.
Mhm.
And I'm working with a guy from California who has a certain kind of technology where the house, when it blows away, you might lose your furniture, but the house will still be there. It doesn't, and it's a patent, a kind of technology. Trying to work with General Honore, who did Katrina when it came through, and he has the ear of everybody in government about how to create great, great, great homes for people. So I'll just give you a question. I'm just not interested in what it's made of. It's good that it's not tearing up the environment, but that's not my first question.
Sure.
My first question is, can I build a house where the average person can buy after a storm, where they can come back in and with their furniture and it's not necessarily blown away, and the insurance companies will recognize that, and then they will insure those homes. So you think we could work with you with coastal communities? I have a guy, Mark, who called me from California, and he wants to rebuild all of the houses in LA with certain kinds of houses. And by the way, the value is in the land. A lot of the houses were built in 55, 56, 58, although there were some, quote, great mansions out there that they call mansions in California, and we call starter mansions in Texas, by the way. So my question to you is, when you commercialize what you do and think about it, do you start what it's made of, or do you say we have a great product? So I buy a car and they say, "Man, well, it's got this in here and it's got this in here," and hey, I just want to know one thing: is it going to work and it's going to help people out?
We start with price. That's where we
So you
start.
start with price. So this idea about is I like it for it to be biodegradable. I like all of that.
Yeah.
But in the mass market, I like the way you have an emphasis on helping people like me and helping the people in southern Louisiana. When I say helping, I mean Katrina would come, we'll rebuild the same stick house and it's gone. So I want
Right.
to replace that 512 on a CMG. Want to replace that with houses as a special kind of technology where you take all your furniture out, water come in, you just sweep it out, and you keep going. Right.
Yep.
So tell
That is
me
actually
about.
the exact design of the houses that we just deployed last week into the coastal areas of Bangladesh. Now, to be
Right.
clear, these are, when you say the average person, I think my conception of the average person is a little bit larger than what you're talking. I think you're thinking the average American.
Yeah,
And
but it doesn't. And I'm talking homes.
yeah, and
I'm
we
talking
measure
about
both of
homes
home.
for
You
people. So in southern Louisiana, we do a lot of cinder block.
Right.
That's very, very cool in the summer and very, very hot. It might be better than air conditioning. We don't do cinder blocks in Central Texas. We just don't do them.
Right.
So my question is, do you think you have the technology, A, to enhance the ability of Americans in the Carolinas where they're suffering, right? And to move the technology, and look, just forget about where it come from and what you've done in India.
Sure. Yeah.
And forget about that. And your rhetoric. I'm glad you majored in rhetoric because you do a great presentation, and now you have a lot of networks for the University of Texas. But do you think you can transfer that with a partnership to other people with America
Yes,
to
easily.
help Americans out?
In fact, we are currently working one opportunity in Asia proper, not South Asia where we started. We're also working another in Africa, and we have a potential for an investor slash property group to put up our first manufacturing facility of Better Board just outside of Austin, Texas. We're hoping to have that, break ground on that this year. So yes, and we're already doing it.
Okay.
This stuff is made out of farm waste, guys. I mean, you can find farm waste anywhere. Particularly the thermoset petroleum products that we use are made and refined in Houston. So anywhere that's nearby Houston is going to have extremely low shipping costs, extremely low fabrication costs, and have the capability that you're asking for. You were talking about cinder block, and I wanted to point this out a second time, which is the R value of this material is 30, which is substantially higher than most building materials today. So that insulation, that cool in the summer, warm in the winter that you're talking about, that is provided. I want to share one more thing about that, which is that the homes that we've deployed over the last 4 years in Bangladesh are in a tropical, coastal, extremely humid, extremely stormy area, and people report back that they are comfortable in their homes with no air conditioning unit, with no heating unit, any of that stuff. They are comfortable in our homes.
Well, I don't have to go to Bangladesh. I don't have to go to the islands. I'm from South Louisiana, same voodoo,
Exactly.
same poverty, same everything. But I wanted, look, I could pick up a guitar that costs $5,000. I could go to a pawn shop and pick up the guitar and I just love it. That costs $45.
Right.
I just want it to work. People always say, well, yeah, I have expensive guitars, but my favorite guitar is 120, right? Not $6,000.
Your
I
best
mean,
guitar is one you can play.
yeah, I mean, no, it just feels right. It just, it just.
Yep.
I mean, Willie Nelson's guitar is a classic guitar that he plugged in. It just feels right. So what I want to do is, first of all, is to talk about, just how you really, 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 really advertise the company. It just works. It just works, right?
Yeah.
And then when you start talking to, uh, you know, uh, they said, well, you got carbon fiber in my new car. Okay, but it just looks good, you know? I just want to know how much it is. I don't know about carbon fiber in LC in a whatever in a Lexus, but
Right.
carbon fiber makes it lighter, right? But I'm willing to pay for that, right? So my point
Exactly.
is, if you advertise it, and this is the old, I'm a professor, so I try to be very, very analytical and strategic. Advertise that it works.
Of course.
Advertise that the switching costs are worth it, and I think it should be. Hey, people build houses all the time, and they don't know what the switching costs are and the materials that's in there, but they work.
Of course.
You got it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Now, the other thing I've got to say, when you make a lot of money, I want you to do an endowed professorship to rhetoric at the University of Texas.
I really should, because I think that department was a very short-lived department. I had
So it's
heard that.
still there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh
Um,
yeah, because well, it used to be English. Rhetoric used to be everything. But
right,
we got to
right.
save those things because people don't write anymore. They don't think anymore. They go to the computer. I love rhetoric, right? But my
Mhm.
thing is, and I'm getting very practical here. I have a project with 512 CMG that's all about housing and things that work after storms and people feeling good in climates where there are storms and can rebuild. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
very interested in that project because
Okay.
that was the purpose of this product from the beginning, is that traditional materials, particularly the ones we use here in America, are crap, to be honest with you. I mean,
Mhm.
you just, poke the wall of your home a little too hard and you've got a hole in it, right? You do that in Europe, you'll break your finger. And so, our homes are kind of crappy, and I think that we can do better. And so what I'm not saying to you is, hey, this is a super sustainable material, you should adopt it because it's sustainable. What I'm telling you is this stuff is so tough that it's in testing for the military to stop drone attacks. You want it
Mhm.
in your house that gets hit by storms because it can stop explosives, right?
Sure.
I do
So
agree. And of course, my wife is from Cleveland, Ohio. It
yeah.
looks like they just cut down a tree and built their house. It's so strong. But it's true.
Alex, I think it's fascinating. Thank you for being with us. I'm curious as my last question, and unfortunately, we gotta run here. But what's in front of you? What's going on in the next 6 months? Conferences, breakthroughs, new product announcements, opening a office in the US. What's happening in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so a bunch of crazy stuff is happening in the next 6 months. We're hoping to close 2 or 3 of those deals I mentioned, the Asia
Hmm.
opportunity, the Africa opportunity, and the Texas opportunity for building facilities that will create this building material. One of our most important goals right now is getting funded.
Hmm.
We are post revenue, we are nearly broken even, and yet because personally, there's a couple problems. One is my personal attitude towards large investors. I think
Hmm.
they add little value often, a lot less than they claim to. The second piece is that we don't have the same venture timeline they do. Aligning incentives is really important. They want us to go public or get acquired in 3 years. We plan to be doing exactly what we're doing for at least the next 5 years. So that doesn't really line up. So what we typically look for is angels, angel syndicates, and small funds and family offices, high net worth individuals, that sort of thing. People
Hmm.
who can be more patient with their capital because their job doesn't depend on it. So
Hmm.
we're looking to
And
raise three.
yeah, you're right. Michael Dell
You're
was.
looking,
Yeah.
well, hold on, Johnny. Let him finish. You're looking to raise how much?
We're looking to raise 3 million US in the next 2 months. On a $15 million post money valuation, which means it's 12 pre.
Mhm.
Um, this enables us to move our business to the United States. So you have a techno-economically proven business in India that's almost profitable, is profitable on a per unit basis, and now needs to be moved to the United States to capture the maximum margin, which on our products would be going from like around 16% to closer to 70% in the United
Mhm.
States.
Who would be in a dream world? Who would be the best partner for you? Dow Chemical? Well, who would be the company that could make this in volume?
I mean, any compounder, and this is actually a tough question because compounding is not really something that's done by named companies. Dow,
Hmm.
Shell, Exxon, Braskem all make feedstock that would go into this, but typically they don't do their own compounding, which is the mixing of the feedstock with chemicals to make it do a particular job. So the compounders are really our customers. They're the ones we sell our technology to so that they can make our resins and make a higher margin on that, right? So we've got a number of partners here in the United States. We are not lacking for partners. What we are lacking for and what we've been lacking for 3 out of the 5 years we've been in business is funds, right? We have had a 2-month or less runway for over 3 years, guys. And that's a failure as the CEO. But I think my success as the CEO is to have the grit to keep going. I dial like a salesman these days, and have been doing for the last 3 years. I've raised $2.5 million with an average check size of about $35,000.
Wow. That's a lot of phone calls, Alex. We're going to keep in touch. Guys, you're welcome to circle back with final thoughts. Llewellyn?
I think it's very appropriate. I think you'll be very successful if you can lay on a reliable feedstock and that you're not cannibalizing some other green venture, like which is also a problem. I think it'll be huge. I wonder about mold on your product. Is that a problem?
No, it's fully sealed. I mean, this is FDA food grade stuff.
Okay,
I mean, not
fine.
mold.
Thank you very much. Excellent, and good luck. And we'll be in touch.
Sounds
Final
good.
thoughts, Johnny?
Oh yeah, we're great companies in Austin. Dell, Whole Foods, National Instrument was not. Nobody goes public. You know,
Right.
and
Right.
so you can raise some money. I think that the 3 million is a little small myself for fundraising, but that's okay. But in the structure we have wealth organized. I'm bringing a company now from the Netherlands in the same kind of a tradition, and I just had a company go through FDA raising money, and we raised the money, family and friends and angel networks, and then there's family offices. But we'll be happy to talk to you about that with 512 CMG. I think it's not a problem. And also you should think about well, you got maybe thinking somebody purchasing your company for 200 million, but then they might just bury everything too.
Yeah.
Use the products. I think
That's I'll share one last thought on that one, John, because I really like that you said that. This is about me personally. So in 2020, I ended up falling a bunch and going to the doctor and found that my right hip was completely necrotic, needed to be removed. Otherwise, I would have a stroke and die from all the necrotic bone in my bloodstream. A year and a half later, that happened a second time to my left hip. And so that was replaced. And about a year ago, I finally got a diagnosis as to why my bones were turning necrotic inside of me for no reason. I have a genetic degenerative disease that put me in a wheelchair about a year and a half ago for 6 months, and I responded to that. I'd said, I'm a big enough person to be in a wheelchair. Turns out, no, I'm not. So I went back to my doctor and took the other road, which was chemotherapy, biologicals, and a number of other drugs that will substantially shorten my life. I expect to make it to maybe 55 or 60 if I'm lucky, 50 if I'm unlucky. And guys, in 9 days, I turned 35, which means I have 15 to 20 years to accomplish my goals. So most investors are going to hate to hear this, but we will not sell out our company at a time when it is convenient or when it is easy to shut down what we have done. What we have done is important for the future of humanity. It's important for the future of production. And so we'll either remain private in a irrevocable trust under my name that will carry out my values long into the future, or we will find an acquisition partner that shares those values. And then, of course, our investors and everybody else gets paid all the money that they want to get paid.
Yeah, I think that's good, but remember, investors just want their money back. We love the person to stay, but remember, you invest. But yeah, and I think that's good. We're doing the same thing. Anyway, we would love to write. We can get under. You got my connections. Give me a shout, and I think you have lots of options. Hook 'em horns, and I think that you're going to do extremely well. But I don't want you to fall in love with your company. There's other things that you can do with your wealth.
That is fair.
Look at Andreas. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Hook 'em horns. Hey, we got a football game. We got a basketball team Saturday night. Let's hook the horns. Okay, all right. Take care.
I got
Hook 'em. Oh, I gotta do
Take us
this.
away, Johnny.
I'm going down to the Greyhound station. I'm gonna get a ticket to ride. I'm gonna find that lady, 2 or 3 kids, and sit down by her side. Ride till the sun comes up and down, round about 2 or 3 times. Smoke a cigarette on the back seat. Try out the songs on the people I meet, and get along with it all, or where the people say y'all.
Okay.
Woo!
All right, Alex.
Done.
Get your
Thanks,
guitar.
man.
Alex, thank you. We'll be
Take
in
care.
touch.
Bye-bye.